Hello, my name is Narashini Binti Mahmud, and we are in my group, group 1. We are from BE4.23. So, our short story are titled as Lamb to the Slaughter by Roald Dahl. This is my part from the slide, which is the story information. Okay, so the first is the publication history. So Roald Dahl's Lamb to the Slaughter was published on 1953. It's a darkly short story. Initially, it was rejected by the New Yorker before being published in Harper's Magazine. Moving on is cultural context. It was written during post-war domesticity when suburban housewife was an idealist cultural image. And next one is legacy. The short story Lamb to the Slaughter was adapted for television multiple times and widely taught in school for its twist ending and literary devices. Next slide is synopsis. So Dahl's, or Roald Dahl is the full name, he subverted the suburban housewife stereotype by creating Mary Maloney, a devoted pregnant wife who murders her detective husband with a frozen leg of lamb after he announces that he is leaving her. Ingeniously, she cooks the weapon and serves it to the investigating officers who unknowingly consume the evidence.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I would like to present the plot summary of Lamb to the Slaughter by Roald Dahl. The story is about Mary Maloney, a loving wife whose life suddenly changes when her husband, Patrick, tells her shocking news. Feeling upset and emotional, Mary accidentally kills him with a frozen leg of lamb. After that, she tries to hide the crime by creating an alibi and pretending to discover his body later. The police investigate the murder but cannot find the weapon because Mary cooks the lamb and serves it to them as dinner. In conclusion, the story is interesting because it contains suspense, irony, and unexpected ending. Now, I will explain the vertex triangle for Lamb to the Slaughter by Roald Dahl. First, we have exposition, where Mary Maloney is introduced as a loving and caring wife who is happily waiting for her husband to come back home. Next, we have rising action, where the tension begins when Patrick tells Mary shocking news that changes their relationship, making her emotionally unstable. Next, we have climax, where the turning points happen when Mary kills Patrick with a frozen leg of lamb in a sudden emotional reaction. And then, we have falling action, where Mary creates an alibi, acts normal, and later misleads the police during their investigation. And then, the end, we have resolution, where the police failed to find the murder weapon because Mary has already cooked and served it to them for dinner. In conclusion, the story follows a clear vertex triangle structure filled with suspense and irony.
Hi everyone, today I'm going to explain the setting and conflict in the story Lamb to the Slaughter by Roald Dahl. For the setting of place, most of the story happens in the Maloney family's house. The living room is described as warm, clean, and comfortable, which shows that Mary is a caring wife at the beginning of the story. The kitchen is also important because Mary cooks the frozen leg of lamb there. Another important place is the cellar, where she goes to get the meat. The garden is mentioned when the policemen investigate the house. Besides that, the grocery store is another setting because Mary goes there to create an alibi after killing Patrick. For the setting of time, the story takes place in the evening, around 5 p.m. onwards. This can be proven by the quote, "When the clock said 10 minutes to 5, another clue is when the grocery shop lights were still on before 6 o'clock. The story also happens on Thursday evening because Mary mentioned that she has not made.
Assalamualaikum and good morning everyone. Today I would like to present about the character and characteristic in short story Lamb to the Slaughter written by Roald Dahl. This story is a suspense and mystery story about a woman named Mary Melanie. The story also includes themes such as betrayal, irony, and appearance versus reality. The first character is Mary Melanie. At the beginning of the story, Mary is shown as a loving and caring wife. She always waits happily for her husband to come home and take care of him. Mary is also calm and gentle. However, after hearing shocking news from her husband, she changed completely. She becomes clever and quick thinking because she managed to hide the crime and create an alibi. Mary is also manipulative because she tricks the police officer into eating the murder weapon. One example from the story is she loves to luxuriate in the presence of this man. This shows how much she loved her husband before the conflicts happened. The next character is Patrick Melanie. Patrick is Mary's husband and he works as a police detective. He is serious and distant. When he comes home, he does not speak warmly to Mary. Patrick is also insensitive because he tells Mary about upsetting news without thinking about her feelings. An example from the story is, "And he told her." Short sentence shows his cold attitude and creates suspense in the story. The police officers are another important group of the character in the story. They are friendly and trusting because they believe Mary is innocent. However, they are also careless because they fail to notice the real murder weapon. One example is probably right under our very noses. This is ironic because the police officers are actually eating the murder weapon at that moment. In conclusion, the characters make the story more interesting and suspenseful. Mary Melanie is the most important character because she changes the most throughout the story. Lastly, the story teaches us not to judge people only by their appearance.
I will explain the conflict in the story. The external conflict, which is person versus person, happens between Mary Melanie and her husband, Patrick Melanie. Patrick tells Mary shocking news and this changes her emotion completely. Because of this conflict, Mary becomes angry and kills Patrick using a frozen leg of lamb. The external conflict, which is person versus self, happens after Mary kills Patrick. She feels afraid and panics. At the same time, she tries to stay calm and hide the evidence so that the police will not suspect her. The conflict gives a strong effect to the story because it creates suspense and tension. It also changes Mary's personality drastically, from a loving wife into a clever, desperate murderer. In the end, the conflict leads to the ironic ending of the story. One important quote is, "And in the other room, Mary Melanie began to giggle." This quote shows Mary's emotional change and how successful her plan was.
The point of view used in Lamb to the Slaughter is third-person limited point of view. The narrator mainly focuses on Mary Melanie's thoughts and feelings. Because of this, readers can understand her emotion and reaction throughout the story. This point of view also creates suspense because readers only know what Mary knows. For example, the line, "She begins thinking very fast," shows that Mary's thoughts directly to the readers. Therefore, the point of view helps make the story more interesting and suspenseful.
Okay, so the first theme from the short story are betrayal, which is Patrick's shocking announcement betrays Mary's trust and it destroys the stability of their marriage. His betrayal becomes the trigger for the story's violence. Next is the appearance versus reality. Mary appears to be gentle and a loving housewife at first, but then she is capable of murder. The detectives also fail to see the truth, even the evidence is directly just in front of them, which is the cooked leg of lamb. Moving on, the next theme from the short story are revenge, which is Mary's act can be viewed as revenge against Patrick, which is her husband, for emotionally devastating her and threatening her future. Other than that, the theme are gender roles and domestic life. The story reflects traditional expectations of women in the home, which is Mary initially shown as the perfect obedient wife. But the story challenges the stereotypes by revealing her intelligence and capabilities. Moving on to our next slides, we'll be talking about irony, justice, and morality, also transformation. Let's focus on irony. Irony is one of the strongest themes in the story because, as you guys can see, there's three evidence that we found from the short story. Here's one: the murder weapon is an ordinary household item, which is, like we have already know, the murder weapon are just a leg of lamb. Nothing extraordinary, nothing like we can see that this stuff are dangerous, can bring harm to us. It's just an ordinary item. And next is the detectives eat the evidence. The detectives are supposed to find the evidence of the murder, but instead, without them knowing that they digest the evidence. And last one is the officers discuss the weapon being right under their noses while literally consuming it. The detectives feel like they are near the evidence, but they doesn't realize that the evidence are literally just in front of their eyes, literally what they are enjoying. Moving on is justice and morality. The ending raises questions about justice because Mary escapes the punishment. Readers may wonder whether sympathy for her situation changes how they judge her crime. Because, we understand her situation, we feel sympathy for her, but does that even justify her wrongdoings? And last but not least is transformation. Mary changes dramatically from a calm and caring wife into a calculating criminal within a short time, showing how extreme emotional shock can transform a person. So that's all from me.
Right. Roald Dahl uses many literary devices to make the story more interesting, such as, first, irony. Irony is when the opposite of what we expect happens. For example, the police are searching for the murder weapon, but they end up eating it themselves. This makes the ending surprising and funny in a dark way. Second, symbolism. Symbolism is when an object represents a deeper meaning. In the story, the lamb represents innocence and family life. Usually, a lamb is gentle and harmless, but here it becomes a murder weapon. Third, tone, mood of the story. At the beginning, the story feels calm and warm because Mary is waiting for her husband. After the murder, the tone changes and becomes dark. This keeps readers interested and nervous at the same time. Fourth, imagery. Imagery is when the writer uses descriptions to help readers imagine the scene. Roald Dahl describes the warm house, the frozen lamb, and Mary's action clearly. Because of this, readers can picture everything happening in the story. Fifth, characterization. Characterization is how the writer shows a character's personality. At first, Mary is shown as loving and caring wife. After killing Patrick, she becomes calm, clever, and manipulative. This shows how much her character changes. 6. Contrast. Contrast shows strong differences between two things. For example, the story shows a warm home but also a violent murder. Mary is both a loving wife and a murderer. These differences make the story more shocking and interesting.